Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome. As Gavin said there, this is a virtual tour of Redburn Cemetery in Hollywood. So that image that you should be able to see there is from on the screen is from Redburn Cemetery, and it features a few of the guys who will feature in the Zoom call. So bottom left, you've got Barney Eastwood. Then in the middle, look at Rolf Friars. And then into the right, there is Paul and Dorothy Nelson. So there's 20 slides, and so I'll rattle through them. Have to be finished by 5:02. So I'll be finished well before that. So I hadn't been in Redburn Cemetery until relatively recently, and during lockdown, lockdown 1, Nigel Henderson and I, we contemplated climbing over the wall to get into it. It was closed, but we actually played by the rules and waited for it to reopen. So when we got in, then I discovered that it's an interesting enough cemetery. Opened one of the newer cemeteries that I have been in, and it also featured in my forthcoming book 2020, due out last year, obviously. So the first, I'll rattle through them now. So the first one then, Corporal George James Bonner, and both photographs are provided by Nigel Henderson. So you can see about the middle there commemorates Corporal George James Bonner, 1st Battalion Rifle Brigade, killed in action 5th of May 1915. He was born on 24th of October 1882 at Aston in Warwickshire. George William Bonner and Margaret Bassett, and he was living at Irish Street in Downpatrick and was a steward at the Country Club in Downpatrick, and he married Sarah Jane Heron of Shore Street in Hollywood on the 21st of August 1911 at Holywood Parish Church. He died of wounds on the 15th of May 1915, aged 32, and is buried at Le Treport Military Cemetery in France. He's also commemorated on the memorial tablet for Holywood Parish Church, and that's St. James and St. Philip's. And you can see there in the photograph that he was a drill instructor and a member of the Masonic and Orange Orders. The second one then is another war fatality, but this time from the Second World War, and this is Brigadier Robert Dermot Perot, killed at El Alamein, 1942. The Second Battle of El Alamein lasted from 23rd of October until the 11th of November 1942, and was a battle of the Second World War that took place near the Egyptian railway halt of El Alamein. The 8th Army was led by Lieutenant General Bernard Montgomery, whose father hailed from County Donegal. Thousands of combatants died on each side during the battle, with Winston Churchill recognizing the importance of the battle, stating, "Before El Alamein, we never had a victory. After El Alamein, we never had a defeat." It was a significant battle. Sadly, Brigadier Perot lost his life during that battle. And you can see the headstone, commemorates his wife, Gabriel Francis, who died 16th of May 1984, age 88. The next one then is Captain Augustus Banning, and you can see there he's a number of letters after his name. DSO, Distinguished Service Order. LM, I don't know what it means, but I'm open to suggestions. There you go, Nigel. RNR, Royal Navy Reserve, and MN, Merchant Navy. He was a master mariner living at Miles Cross, Hollywood, when he died on the 5th of October 1953. He was born at Lockerbie in Dumfriesshire in 1894, and he was known to his friends as Wee Banning. He worked for the Clyde Shipping Company for many years and had gained his extra master's certificate. He was command of the company's ship Beachy Head when she was bombed and sank on the 11th of January 1941. He was rescued by a trawler and could only be given first aid for a broken leg, so he suffered thereafter from a limp. He was awarded the DSO, Distinguished Service Order, for services during North Russian convoy PQ-17 in July 1942, and was also awarded a Lloyd's Medal for bravery at sea in August 1943, when master of RS rescue ship Rathlin, RS Rathlin, one of only two such awards to the rescue ship service in the war. This will interest Lolly. He was also an authority on the life and works of Robert Burns. The next one then is this white headstone. It has been cleaned up just last year. It looks very well now, and you can see there's a Royal RAF logo on the top, and it commemorates Squadron Leader Wally Runciman, AFC and DFM. Much loved husband of Edwina and father of Greta Mary, Philip and Tracy, killed at the Sydenham Air Display 9th of June 1956, aged 35. He was a test pilot for Short Brothers in Harland and was flying the 4th Short SB6 Seamew MR2 prototype XE175, which first flew on the 15th of December 1955, followed by a series of sales tours in 1956 to Italy in March, Yugoslavia in April, and West Germany in May. During the air display at Sydenham, the aircraft that Squadron Leader Runciman was piloting entered a slow roll at 100 feet. The nose fell, and the pilot seemed to be trying to finish with a half loop, but with insufficient height, the aircraft struck the runway nose first. Rumours that the crash had been caused by material failure were current at the time, but the Accident Investigation Board did not confirm them. There's a photograph of the plane, type of plane that Squadron Leader Runciman would have been piloting at the time of his death. So my dad went to school with one of the children, and can remember the child not coming in for a day or two because their father had been killed in the crash. That was when I think he went to Sullivan School. So the next slide is this man to the right. At this Commonwealth War Grave Commission-like headstone commemorates Robert John Brimblecombe. Private Brimblecombe died in an accident at Ballylumford on the 23rd of June 1969 while serving with the 2nd Battalion, the Queen's Regiment, aged 19. Brimblecombe was buried with full military honours at Redburn, 400 yards from Palace Barracks, where he was stationed when he died. So the next headstone then is Constable Robert Buckley, RUC. He was killed on duty, as it says there on his headstone, 26th of February 1971, dearly loved husband of Jean. So that's Constable Buckley there, top right. And he was shot dead by the IRA whilst on an RUC mobile patrol on Etna Drive in Ardoyne, and was aged 30 at the time of his death. Also killed in the same incident was 45-year-old Cecil Patterson of 72 Ravenhill Gardens, Belfast, and he's buried at Roselawn Cemetery. So two of the earlier victims of the more than 300 folks who died whilst serving with the RUC during the Troubles. Another RUC officer buried in Redburn, but I forgot to take a photograph of the headstone, is Michael Malone. He was 35. He was a plainclothes RUC officer, shot along with Edward Carson, with his colleague Edward Carson, while in the Liverpool Bar in Donegal Quay in Belfast. And he was buried following a funeral service at St. Columkills. The next headstone is one of the ones that featured on the front, the front of the start of the presentation, on the title slide, and you'll see there it commemorates Paul Nelson, who was born in 1940, died in 1978, and Dorothy Nelson, who also died in 1978, born in 1942. And at the bottom of the base of the headstone, at the base of the stone on the grave, it just says "taken too soon." This is Paul and Dorothy Nelson to your right, and with their two children, and they died, as you might know from that horrendous image below, in the Le Mans bombing in 1978. Le Mans was, as people will know, was on the 17th of February 1978, and an incendiary bomb was left by the IRA, and the incendiary bomb contained a napalm-like substance, and it was placed outside one of the restaurant's windows. There were 450 diners, hotel staff, and guests inside the building. The blast created a fireball, killing 12 people and injuring 30 more, many of whom were severely burnt. The Nelsons were living in Dundonald with their two daughters at the time of their deaths. So it's a particularly sad story. Next one is for any fanatics that might be tuned in, maybe Mark Doherty. This is Van Morrison's mum and dad. So his father, George, he was recorded there as a devoted husband and father, died on the 22nd of April 1988, whilst Violet, also commemorated in the headstone and pictured to the right, she is commemorated as a much-loved mother and grandmother. She died 31st of May 2016. So George Ivan, known as Van Morrison, was born on the 31st of August 1945 at 125 Hindford Street, and was the only child of George, a shipyard electrician, and Violet Stitt Morrison, who had been a singer and tap dancer in her youth. From 1950 to 1956, Morrison attended the nearby Elm Grove Primary School, also attended by my mother, and then Orangefield High School, not attended by my mother. During Van's youth, his father owned one of the largest record collections in Northern Ireland, and acquired during his time working in Detroit, Michigan in the early 1950s. So the young Morrison therefore grew up listening to artists such as Jelly Roll Morton, Ray Charles, Leadbelly, Sonny Terry, and Brownie McGee. Van Morrison has a number of houses, I believe, in Northern Ireland, and one of them is definitely outside Holywood, and he can be seen in a local coffee shop where the heiress to the Empire works on occasions. So that's Van Morrison's mum and dad. The next one then is this one here, top left. She commemorates Anne Nee Muckle, born, and this was called Chilvers, born 29th of July 1943, and then Brian, born 14th of May 1944, and all the best people have their birthdays. Tragically killed 8th of January 1989 in the Kegworth air disaster, fondly remembered by Rosie, Martin, Claire, David and Richard. So there's a photograph of the Kegworth air disaster there, bottom right. It occurred when a British Midland Boeing 737-400 crashed onto the rail motorway embankment while attempting to make an emergency landing at East Midlands Airport. The aircraft was on a scheduled flight from London Heathrow to Belfast International when a fan blade broke in the left engine, disrupting the air conditioning and filling the cabin with smoke. Pilots mistakenly shut down the functioning of the aircraft's two engines and selected full thrust from the malfunctioning one, causing it to catch fire. Of the 126 people on board, 47 died, including the Chilverses, 74 sustained serious injuries, and 5 suffered minor injuries. All 8 members of the crew survived the accident. So the Chilvers couple are one of a number of victims of the Kegworth Air disaster where I know that they're buried. I know that there's also other victims in Carnmoney Cemetery, and also four buried in neighbouring graves in Roselawn Cemetery, including the Maloney's, and then a couple who were serving RUC officers when they died as a result of the Kegworth Air disaster. The next one then is this man to your right, and you'll see in the middle of the headstone, Private Brian Marcus Lawrence, UDR, beloved husband of Lorraine, killed by terrorists 17th of June 1991, aged 34 years. He was shot dead by the IRA whilst off duty at his workplace, which is a tire depot on Duncrew Street in Belfast. And at his funeral service at Holywood Parish Church, the Bishop of Down and Dromore, Gordon McMullen, said, "Those who commit these crimes are murderers, not patriots, are life destroyers, not nation builders, are wearing a badge of shame, not the badge of nobility or pride, and have nothing positive or hopeful to offer any part of this community." So that's Brian Lawrence. The next one then is a man from East Belfast, Rolf Friars. He was born in East Belfast on the 13th of April 1920 and grew up in the Lagan Village area of Belfast, an area where my grand Craig grew up in as well. He studied at the Belfast College of Art from 1935 to 1942 and began publishing his cartoons in the 1940s, concentrating on political cartooning with the advent of the Troubles in the late 1960s. His work appeared in Punch, Radio Times, London Opinion, Daily Express, Sunday Independent, Dublin Opinion, Northern Whig, the Newsletter, Irish Times, and the Belfast Telegraph. Aside from cartooning, Friars was a leading figure in the Ulster Watercolour Society, and his oil paintings hang in the National Portrait Gallery, the Gallery of the Ulster Museum, and many other collections. He illustrated more than 30 books, including John Pepper's Ulster Dialect book, which learned you how to talk proper for anybody that didn't have a copy, and an American edition of the works of W.B. Yeats. Friars was also the president of the Ulster Association of Drama Festivals and president of the Royal Ulster Academy of Arts from 1983 to 1997. He was awarded the MBE in 1977 and he died on the 21st of September 1998. And you can see there at the base of the headstone the image of a friar, and then he's commemorated as an artist and cartoonist, much loved husband, father and grandfather, and with a quote, "I have had a wonderful life." So Royal Friars, that sketch of him was done by a guy called David Francis, and that's one of 20 sketches that features in the forthcoming 2020 book. That's Royal Friars. Well, you can still see his house, which is in Holywood, Croft Road, I think. The name Friars still appears on the gate post. Next one then, and again thanks to Nigel Henderson for both these photographs. It features at the bottom of the headstone there, Jesse Chain Getty, died 14th of December 2001, aged 107 years. And that's a photograph of Jessie there. She was born Jessica Roberts in Glasgow around 1893. William Henry Roberts, a gasworks manager, and Jane Mahady. In 1901 and 1911, the family was living at Mill Street in Ards, and Jessie was recorded as being a seamstress in 1911. Jessie joined the Ulster Volunteer Force Nursing Corps during the Home Rule crisis and was living at the Gasworks House in Donaghadee when she volunteered for war service with the Voluntary Aid Detachment. She served at the First Southern General Hospital in Birmingham and then at the War Hospital at Wimereux. When Jessie returned to Ireland, she served at the Hildon Convalescent Hospital at Galwally House. And for those who haven't watched Nigel's talk about Galwally House, it's available on the History of Ulster YouTube channel. and she was also at the UVF Hospital and Botanic in Queen's University. It was at Galwally House that Jessie met John Boyd Getty, whom she married on the 27th of July 1925 at Belfast Registrar's Office. Jessie was also awarded the proficiency in, that's easy for me to say, the proficiency in Red Cross Nursing Medal, the proficiency in Red Cross First Aid Medal, and the proficiency in anti-gas training. And as it says there in her headstone, she died on the 14th of December 2001, aged 107 years. So say thanks to Nigel Henderson for that photograph, which was actually provided to him from the Somme nursing home. So that headstone also commemorates John Boyd Getty, and he was badly wounded on 18th of March 1916 when he was standing at the entrance to a dugout when a high explosive German shell exploded nearby, and he sustained injuries to his head, side and leg. His leg had to be amputated, and he relinquished his commission due to ill health on the 1st of January 1918. He was subsequently treated at the Hilden Convalescent Hospital. That's where he met his wife. After the war, he returned to university, gaining his Bachelor of Law degree from Trinity College in Dublin. In 1924, he came first in the Law Society's final examinations and was awarded the Society's Silver Medal. After relinquishing the chairmanship of the Agricultural Wages Board for Northern Ireland, John Boyd Getty was made an Officer of the Order of the British Empire, OBE, in the Queen's Birthday Honours List in 1958. He was living at the Main Road in Holywood when he died 14th of July 1976, aged 83. Next one then is this man, Leslie McCarrison, and he was better known perhaps as Rathcall. He was the Belfast Telegraph music critic for many years, writing under the name of Rathcall. A real character and very well known within the Northern Ireland music circles. He was a regular at Ulster Orchestra concerts on Friday evenings and occasional Saturday evenings. He's also a faithful supporter of opera and ballet performances in the Opera House. Also turned up and reported lots of other concerts and performances across the province. He didn't drive and he relied on public transport or lifts to get him to these events. And he died, as it says there on his headstone, 3rd of July 2003 when he was in his late 80s. It's my friend Stuart McCracken who brought my attention to that headstone. The next one then is this one here, and it commemorates, you'll see in the middle, Lance Corporal Nigel David Moffat. He was serving with the Light Dragoons. Born on 12th of December 1980, died 30th of May 2009. Soldier, son and saint, KIA, killed in action, Afghanistan. So he joined the Light Dragoons in July 2003 and served in operations with regimental headquarters in Iraq in 2003 and Sea Squadron, the Legion, in Iraq in 2005 and Afghanistan 2008. He was taking part in an operation in Musa Qawak with the Brigade Reconnaissance Force when he was killed along with Corporal Stephen Bolger as a result of an explosion. Corporal Tony Duncan said on behalf of his friends in command troop, "Before we came out here, Moff let it be known that if he died in Afghanistan, he would be happy because he was doing a job he loved." Sadly, Moff was predeceased by his mother, commemorated in the headstone as Euphemia Elaine Moffat, born on the 20th of December 1949, died on the 14th of May 2004. Beloved wife and mother, with the base of the headstone stating, "The garment Elaine wore was seamless." So I don't normally like mentioning Hendersons, but I'll mention this Henderson. Oscar William James, better known as Bill Henderson, OBE DL, Order of the British Empire Deputy Lieutenant, dearly loved husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He was born on 17th August 1924, and he was raised at Hillsborough Castle, where his father was a private secretary in the governor's household. After Queen's University and the Irish Guards, he joined the family publishing business as a trainee manager in 1947. introducing new thinking to the Unionist daily, the newsletter, and along with his brother Brum, joined a syndicate that won the first commercial television franchise for Northern Ireland in 1958. Bill became managing director of the newsletter in 1959 and oversaw further investment, with the popularity of the paper soaring under his leadership, the launch of Northern Ireland's first Sunday newspaper, the Sunday News, in 1965. He opted to sell the business in 1989 after the business was 200 years in the family. He also held a seat at Stormont from 1953 until 1958, and went on to chair the executive committee of the Ulster Unionist Council, still canvassing for the Ulster Unionist Party at the age of 80, also undertaking charitable work on behalf of the blind and disabled. And as it says there in his headstone, he died 22nd of October 2010. That's him pictured on the right along with his wife Primrose, and she has since also passed away, but a number of years ago. For some reason, she's still not commemorated on the headstone. The next one then is Sir Oliver Napier, and there's Oliver Napier to your right, and then there's his headstone to the left. He was born on 11th of July 1935 and educated at St Malachy's College and Queen's University before starting work as a solicitor. He then joined the Ulster Liberal Party, rising to become vice president by 1969 before establishing a new political party, the Alliance Party of Northern Ireland. He served as the party's joint leader from 1970 until 1972, then as its sole leader from 1973 to 1984. In 1973, Napier was a minister in the Power Sharing Executive. In 1979, he came closer to winning a seat in the Westminster Parliament than any other Alliance candidate had up to that point, when he was less than 1,000 votes behind Peter Robinson's winning total in Belfast East. This record was beaten in 2010 when Naomi Long ousted Robinson from the same seat. When Napier stepped down as leader in 1984, he received many plaudits for his work. The following year, he was knighted, and in 1989, he stood down from Belfast City Council, seemingly to retire. However, in 1995, he returned to the political fray when he contested the North Down by-election for the Alliance Party, standing again in the 1997 general election. He also served on the Board of Governors for our first integrated school, Lagan College, and he died on the 2nd of July 2011. He's in his mid-70s. I can remember as a kid in Dunleary Park in Dundonald when they used to go around canvassing in vehicles, and they were playing Oliver's Army by Elvis Costello, and they were trying to get you to vote for the Alliance Party. The next slide is a particularly sad couple. This is the Rogers, John and Lynette Rogers, and you'll see there a photograph of them on their wedding day to the right. Sadly, both John and Lynette drowned on honeymoon on the 23rd of October 2005 in a tragic accident in South Africa, only 6 days after exchanging their wedding vows. They got caught in a riptide while swimming. Lynette was 26 and she was an NHS physiotherapist from Holywood and was swimming with her husband John, 28, from Ballygown, who worked at Calvert Office Equipment in East Belfast, when tragedy struck at Redburn Beach in the Western Cape Province of South Africa. Members of the National Sea Rescue Initiative attempted to resuscitate the couple after they were discovered washed up on the beach, but they were declared dead by a team doctor. So a tragic story, and that photograph's courtesy of Caroline Smith. The next one then is Vincent, known as Vinty, as all the best people are. Gilbert, 1960 to 2015, a wonderful husband, father and grandpa. His absence is a silent grief. His life is a beautiful memory. And you'll see there are the images of a guitar and a motorbike. And then at the bottom of the headstone, the lyrics, I belong with you, you belong with me, you're my sweetheart. So any music fans might recognize that as the chorus from a song called Ho Hey by the Lumineers. So Vinnie Gilbert was on his motorbike coming back to Holywood on the bike, just near the exchange there with at Holywood Exchange. He became ill. He pulled in basically underneath the bridge there and was treated in the roadside before being taken to the Royal Victoria Hospital in Belfast, where he later died. He was a well-known musician. He operated the guitar rooms in Holywood, which I think are still going, with his pal Neil Kearney, a fellow musician. After his friend's death, Neil told Belfast Live, "To me, he was both a brother and a father. He was that type of person. He would never judge you or judge anyone. He had a lust for life. He was an adventurer. He was a musician, a sailor who had last year crossed the Atlantic. He had a smile every time you saw him. He wasn't a complainer. He got on with it." Married to Cheryl, Finty was survived by his children Megan, Alana, and Nicky, and his older brother Wilfie, who is also a popular local singer-songwriter. This is the penultimate one then. This is Barney Eastwood. So you'll see there on the headstone, sadly, Barney BJ was predeceased by a son, Fenton Joseph, who died 29th of August 1990, aged only 30. And then you'll see Barney, or Bernard Joseph, known as BJ, a beloved husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather who died 9th of March 2020, aged 87 years. Barney was born in Cookstown in 1932, and he was a keen Gaelic footballer in his youth. And then he was introduced to boxing through the weekly boxing tournaments at a nearby US air base. Aged 19, he was married to his wife Frances, depicted there bottom right, whilst living in Carrickfergus, running a pub and assisting in the running of a local boxing club. In the late 1950s, Eastwood, already a successful business bookmaker, began running small boxing shows in Belfast. Eastwood was most notable for promoting the career of Barry McGuigan. However, the relationship between the two soured, and this led to a costly and acrimonious legal battle between the two. So there, after McGuigan beat Pedrosa at Loftus Road in London, that's the cavalcade when they came back to Belfast. So that's also pictured in there is Barry McGuigan's wife, Sandra, and his firstborn, who was until recently Carl Frampton's trainer, Ian McGuigan. During the 1980s and 1990s, Eastwood ran Eastwood's Gym along with John Breen on Belfast King Street. In February 2008, Eastwood sold his chain of 54 betting shops to the UK chain Ladbrokes for 135 million. He lived at the Hill in Cultraw for many years. And that house was previously occupied by the Haynes, H-E-Y-N, and a beautiful house. And he died in the Ulster Hospital, as I said there earlier, on the 9th of March 2020, aged 87. So the last grave that I'm going to show is over to the left there. It is a final resting place of John McConnell, known as Con Auld. He's not actually commemorated on the headstone yet. He died on the 28th of April 2020, aged 90. The Reverend Con Auld, known as Birdie at Inst, he taught divinity at the school, and he was taught there between 1958 until 1988. And I remember him as the most eccentric of the teachers there amid stiff competition. Auld also served as an Ulster Unionist councillor from 1973 until 1988, and as Mayor and Deputy Mayor of Northdown Borough Council on the various occasions. In the 1960s, he built the tiny St. Gobbins Church at his summer home at Port Braddon on the North Antrim coast, measuring just 11 foot 4 inches by 6 foot 9 inches. It once hosted the wedding of a 4-star US general and was used to raise over £100,000 for charity over the years. Sadly, it was demolished by a new owner in 2017. as I mentioned earlier, very old, died on the 28th of April 2020, aged 90. So that's in the middle there is the Gobbins Church that he had built for him, actually. And then his house then where he lived in Holywood. On the right, that's Martello Tower, 14 Croft Road. And as you can see, it's recently been sold. So quite an eccentric character with a couple of eccentric residences as well. So also buried in Redburn Cemetery is another teacher of mine from Inst. He was Ronnie Hiscox. He was a music teacher who taught me English, as you do. And he died on the 28th of September 1984, aged only 53 years. So thanks very much for listening, everyone. It's be remiss of me not to mention this, my forthcoming 2020 book, which I mentioned earlier. It features 20 graves, many of which I've talked about there from Redburn Cemetery. So I hope to have that out within the next month, but I probably said that about a month ago as well. Hope to have it out before the end of 2021. That would be maybe a bit more realistic. Thanks very much.